Good afternoon, all. Thanks for attending this session, where we take our regular whistle-stop tour through what's coming in Wave 1 for 2025 for Dynamics 365. This is purely for finance and supply chain. So yes, you should hopefully know me by now. I've done a few of these now. So I'm Chris Tilley, Enterprise Architect here at HSO. And my colleague Debbie supports me in these and organises all of the Lunch and Learn sessions. So as I say, we're going to be looking at the release plans for today. So where to find information. If you're not coming here, you can see the link down there. We can share these URLs. And it's quite nicely structured. So it's not just about finance and operations. There's Power Platform, there's customer service and sales, field service, etc., which, as Debbie mentioned, my colleague Shillam will be talking about later in the month. And a slightly more digestible format. If you go to the URL, you can see there, you can set yourself up, you can log on and create a little kind of release plan that you're interested in, things that are either already out, that are coming, and you can add those. If you sign in, you'll see a little plus box over there. There's a little, so you can add them to your release plan and get notifications on changes. Because sometimes, whilst we do hope things are going to come out when they say, sometimes they're delayed and they'll reappear in the next plan. And actually, a couple of the interesting functionalities that are coming in this plan I won't be mentioning today because they were supposed to be in the last plan, but they got delayed slightly. So we've already talked about them. So if you haven't watched the previous one, go back and watch that. And just a note that Microsoft do a launch event themselves, where you see the head of the business applications division with some colleagues, and you get a lot more demos there where they can have access and you can see kind of the walkthroughs of some of the key functionality. And we get access to them through now. Some of the previews are available all the way through September 2025. And then after that, that's when we're expecting release Wave 2. And then it just rolls on into 2026 and release Wave 1. So the key themes, if you've been staying up to date with Microsoft and the industry in general, no doubt you will have a pretty good guess of what the key themes are going to be. So in finance, we've got the Copilot first experiences. Copilot being Microsoft's AI application, which sits alongside you and helps you with your day-to-day work. So it's not doing work for you as such. It's sitting there. It's giving you things. It's suggesting actions. It's suggesting exceptions to look at, helping you with automation and agentic capabilities, which I'll touch on a little bit later as well. So focusing on improving things like tax management, regulatory compliance, reconciliations, all that kind of thing. And with supply chain management, more autonomy, more intelligence, more AI, leveraging manufacturing, we've actually got an entirely new kind of small module, which is a nice change because those who've been keeping up with the release plan, it really slowed down as far as new functionality, new modules, as Microsoft focused all their efforts on kind of upscaling the platform and making sure the platform was ready for AI and the co-pilots and all of the integrations and automations that were required. So a huge amount of engineering effort went on that, which meant that we didn't see quite so many product features coming out. And that's starting to change now. So the product is starting to speed up again. So for those who aren't aware, just a very quick couple of slides on Microsoft's vision for what they call agentic AI, Copilot agents, agentic AI. So the technology is what Microsoft are building for us. The ERP of the future, combining feature capabilities, extensibility, and automation. So whilst all of the platform is still there and is still being developed, there's still functionality, create purchase orders, bank reconciliation, all of that kind of thing. We want to be driving them less and less. We want the features to be automated where possible, and agents which have access to all of your data in a secure way. These Copilot agents, AI agents, look at what's going on and suggest actions. So it's that simple. They have access to all the data, kind of generative AI looks over that data and suggests things you might want to do to improve and take a next step. And we'll see a couple of those examples later on. So yeah, they could generate actions, they could generate workflows, they could create emails for you, that kind of thing. So the kind of layer, as Microsoft see it in future, will be like this, where we still have our kind of high-level business processes designed to operate, forecast to plan, etc., supported by the tools you'll be familiar with, Microsoft Finance, supply chain management, HR, all of those kind of things. But over the top, more and more, the data will be mined and the suggestions will come back up to the agent layer. So you're able to operate much more efficiently and quickly because you're not kind of searching through reports and fields and comparisons and running, your own Excel comparisons to find out, for example, what invoice the customer isn't aware of and hasn't paid. These things come to you. So yes, the vision is that the next best action is driven by the agent processing, mining all the data. So that's just what an agent is. We'll mention it a few times. More and more they're becoming available. They're already out there in certainly supply chain management and finance. If you've got any question on those, or you want some examples where to go and look in your own implementation, give us a shout and we can point you in the right direction. So first off, just to touch on business performance. So if you've not encountered it, it's a suite of tools within Microsoft Dynamics 365, requires a finance premium license, and it's a tool to help organizations monitor, analyze, optimize their business operations. It brings in data, it builds cubes, enables you to track performance metrics, forecasts, track KPIs, data-driven decisions, all that kind of thing. So they're continually improving that. And you can see here some of the functionality that's landed. You'll be able to see things like outliers. So whereas before you may find that outliers in your data skewed your results and skewed the suggestions, you can see these much easier. They're bringing in assets. You can manage assets because the acquire to dispose data model is there. And all that means is all of the data that you have in finance and elsewhere, you can import data from other systems is now pre-built for you as a cube and as a set of measures, etc. One of the bits which I think is really key in this is the template solutions. Now, for me, this should have been out when the system was out, but we didn't have it. So coming this year, there's a trial experience with template solutions, because processing the data and configuring and putting all of the reports you want can take quite a few weeks, whereas this templated solution will allow us to just kind of take information about a chart of accounts, properties of posted data, connect to out-of-the-box templates and have a view of your profit and loss. And then within there, you can edit within there as well. We'll see a tiny bit of the editing functionality. So you'll be able to just really see the tool, play with the tool and get it working, because now, unless you're quite adept with business analytics, etc., you're basically presented with a kind of empty system that you can configure and become very powerful with, but it's quite a learning curve initially. So yes, you can see all of the extra features in business performance. There's quite a good video alongside this, which I can share out to explain what business performance is and where it's going. So if you've heard planning, business process, analytics or performance planning, that's all wrapped into this business performance tool. So just have a little look at what the architecture is. I won't dwell on this too long. The concept of the business performance planning tool is there are some core capabilities within the tool. Designing cubes, you need admin, of course, security, user access, and then the visualization and the modeling is driven by tools you'll be familiar with, Power BI, Excel, things like that. So it's about extracting data from your systems of record. If you have data lakes, other systems, third-party ERP, pushing it into kind of secure and powerful data storage, and then hydrating your cube assets and allowing you to act on data. So really, it's about modeling your data and then acting on your data. It's not just a reporting tool. It allows you to do things, look at the visuals, share plans, work on plans in a collaborative manner. Do things like, top-down planning for your product lines if you're a retailer, that kind of thing. And it looks sort of like this. So this is an excerpt from one of the videos that Microsoft put together. So you can see there, you can build yourself a pretty advanced dashboard, which you can interact with, and you can see the data that's underlining it. And you can also actually edit that data and collaborate on that data and say, I've altered the forecast for, in this case, intercompany sales, or I'm adjusting up or I'm adjusting down for these reasons. So you can collaborate on those and accept the changes and push them back into Dynamics Finance, for example, as your new forecast. So a very powerful tool, and they're working on it all the time. And I think what's being released throughout 2025 will make it a much more accessible tool as well, because that's some of the feedback we've had from our customers we've been working with. It was quite hard to get going. So these templates, etc., will greatly improve things. Now, this isn't just a finance one, and it's one of the less sexy, kind of exciting features, but they're greatly improving how you can manage security. And this has been a problem for quite a while. And I noticed a couple of names on this call who are experiencing just this kind of issue. So there's a new security model which will be bringing in security functionality, rather, bringing in more governance. So you'll be able to monitor things like segregation of duty and segregation of privileges. You can actively be notified if these things are contravened rather than go and run a report. User aging. So when did somebody last sign in? What roles have they had, and when were they assigned and unassigned? This was a question I got asked literally this week. So, how can I tell if a user's been given a role and it's been taken off them, they've gone and done some work? Well, all of this will just be out of the box. And the security analysis is critical. There are reports now which give you kind of information about what roles people have, their access levels, etc. But this is going to be a much clearer report, a much clearer analysis, so you can really see where your license costs are going. Make sure you're not paying for licenses you don't need, so you can kind of optimize that level of licensing. And where you need to true up with Microsoft. For those that are unaware, in the coming months, Microsoft will be enforcing security and licensing within Dynamics Finance and Supply Chain. It was always kind of an honesty box, but going forward, they will be able to enforce those license assignments. So if you only have 70 finance licenses and you've assigned 75 users, they will be able to request that you true up in future. And how you manage the security and design the security is getting some good improvement. So you can design the roles per process now, and process hierarchy. It's quite hard to visualize that. So we can circulate the links to go and have a look yourself, but basically allows you to design the roles a bit more naturally as to how we think about process rather than just strict roles. You can kind of do role hierarchies. And one thing is temporary access, which is a very useful tool for, maybe somebody's working up when somebody's on holiday, or maternity leave, something like that, and privileged user accounts as well. So somebody can only have access when they need to have access to, say, administrative accounts. And you can import user security and then version manage that security as well. So this is something which, whilst it's not the most exciting thing, it gives you much more control and makes sure that you're compliant as far as the security you want and need, and also compliant as far as licensing. So just some general finance points. Financial tags were introduced as an alternative to financial dimensions. So they're kind of used to track data that isn't necessarily reusable, like a dimension would be, but still provide some analytical context. So they're gradually exploring that. They've been implemented already on quite a few transaction types and inquiries. And then they're now being added, for those of you who use finance intensively, added to the Accounting Source Explorer, and they're added to the record to report data model in business performance that we just talked about. So if you use tags in record to report, you can actually now see those and use them as dimensions in business performance planning, which is great. So you can use them as true dimensions over there, so they get even more useful. And also the purchase order invoicing feature will be enabled. So if you enable that feature, you can apply tags to purchase order and accounting distributions for those purchase orders, some product receipt journals, any pending vendor invoice, and accounting distribution in pending vendor invoices. So you can start to add information and more context and metadata to the transactions in your system without necessarily having to initiate new financial dimensions, which are a bit heavier, a bit more weighty. Bank reconciliation is a continuing focus on that, I would say. Over the previous few releases, Microsoft have been improving that a lot. So the reporting now is getting better. It's basically new report layouts, more reporting data available, including voucher description, and the trading partner details. So it allows you to see what you need to see without necessarily jumping to lots of different screens, which you were doing previously. And if you have matching rules, before you had to kind of create them one by one. Now you can duplicate them. Sounds a small thing, but for people who use the matching intensively, this will be quite a time saver. And then you can see what the results would be. So the matching rule will simulate and preview before you actually update your bank reconciliation. And you can select which rules you want to be manually reviewed before posting the results, and those which you just want to automatically go through. So there's a review screen for users to investigate those results, and you can review by exception should you need to. The bank account lifecycle, is one that was kind of released slightly in one of the releases and now has been expanded upon. So you can see that there's an approval workflow for your activation, modification, deactivation. There's which fields that you want to be kind of controlled by the workflow. So, what are you interested in? Is it just the bank account and sort code, or is it, IBAN numbers, all of that kind of thing, names, addresses? So you can decide which ones need approval there. And then you can, they can run through the standard workflow process and you get an auditing history for, as I say, auditing processes. And you can also now add additional assignments. So the bank account functionality is, it was pretty good already, but it's just getting expanded out there so you have a bit more control. So a bit more on the kind of, that's real nuts and bolts. So fixed assets now, you can split them. So you can identify the source and destination assets. You can decide whether you want to split into a pre-created asset or automatically create an asset. You can preview all of the numbers, the values before and after. What's my net book value? What's my how am I going to split it? Is it by percentage or by amount? And you can see a detailed audit trail on how you've split these entities, and you can actually split them across legal entities, which is pretty new. And we can now transfer the fixed assets between legal entities as well, as you can see there. So this allows you to preview all the details you'd want to see. What does that asset represent to me in monetary terms, financial terms, and if I move it over to the other another legal entity, what does that do? So the process automatically disposes the asset in your source system, your source legal entity rather, and creates it in the target. And as I say, you can either create a new one, you can pre-create one that you want it to go into, and have a little bit of a preview of exactly what that's going to do in terms of values before you go ahead and do it. So it's quite a powerful little tool for those of you who move assets around legal entities, within Europe, etc. And it was something that was done pretty manually before. And just one, it's kind of almost to repeat this one. So we talked about agents and Copilot. So there's a reconciliation agent, account reconciliation agent, which is able to see all of your kind of general ledger and sub-ledger data, and then suggest things which don't match. So as you can see on this one, it's saying, look, most of your sub-ledgers match, but the tax sub-ledger is not matching. But rather than just telling you that, and before you may have had to look through SSR reports and extract data and have a good look around to find out what is wrong, this is going to be replaced with a near real-time process. And by near real-time, that usually means kind of 15 minutes or less, or an hour or less in Microsoft terms. And the finance team can be notified of these reconciliation issues. So upon recognition of this issue, Copilot, which we talked about, the AI tool, identifies any mismatched transactions and provides a solution. So that's one of the differences in this issue, this release rather, is Copilot is now starting to provide recommendations. So in the first preview, which we mentioned in the last, I think 2024 wave 2, it did include the sub-ledger to ledger reconciliation automation, but didn't tell you anything to do. There was no recommendations by the account agent on how you might address it. So the second preview, which is due out shortly, learns from what you've done previously and how you've recommended previously and fixed things previously, and will recommend steps you can take. So this is a bit redacted, this one, but as soon as this is available, we'll do a short demo if people would like to see it. So make sure you fill in the form that we give, because we can't demo everything, but the ones that you're really interested in, we want to make sure we cover. I suspect, although this is not too exciting, it's going to save a lot of time for people processing their month and year ends. And of course, this is all got an audit trail, so you can see what happened, who did what, and longer term, it should be automated resolutions. So moving on to a bit of supply chain management. So the supplier communication agent, another agent with a slightly different spin on it. So this can follow up with vendors for you. So it can look into your email box and basically look through messages that relate to purchase orders. So whereas before, you would be getting an email from your vendor and seeing that purchase order 1, 2, 3 was delayed, or they couldn't fully fulfill it, or the costs were changing, that kind of thing. Now, these emails can be automatically, once you grant access to the specific inboxes, they can be automatically found and processed. And the impact of those, what they actually mean, can be basically created by or understood by Copilot rather, and then it can put the impact into Dynamics Finance for you and tell you that there's a problem. And then you can automatically draft ready to send email. So in this example, apologies if you can't quite see that, but there is some review and follow-up actions, there's record returns and document access is accessible that's led to this. But also you can see that there is purchase orders change. So what agent, and I need to act on some changes. So for example, there's a workspace we looked at last time, which tells you which purchase orders impact orders. So those orders could be sales orders, production orders, work orders, transfer orders, anything that purchase order change impacts. This agent can find it from your email, update the purchase order, and then find out which orders are impacted, and therefore which customers you need to call. Who do you need to speak to? But also you can create agent actions like this and task actions, which, as you see, when a purchase order is this, draft an email to follow up on them. And then you can automatically send that email, and you can have that email put into your Outlook, so you can send and chase any vendors or suppliers who are causing you problems with the delayed purchase orders. So whereas these are all tasks you do, and it's a task of a kind of a procurement agent, and now these things are much quicker, and rather than having to find them, it's working by exception. So actually a new area, a new feature, I suspect this may have been purchased as an ISV, but integrated advanced quality management. So there are elements of this available now, but as you can see, we've now got regulatory requirements, quality excellence is kind of integrated across the supply chain. So helping you to work on continuous improvement, customer satisfaction, compliance, quality excellence. And you can see kind of all of those elements which are brought to the fore. So CAPA management, non-conformance, and you can see that there's oops, sorry, I'm moving forward, there we go. So you get list pages on things like my flexible sampling plan. And let's have a look at my corrective and preventative actions, so CAPA management. So this has become a new workspace, so there's several new workspace, allows you to drive some optimized testing strategies, sampling plans, different types of quality order creation, triggered at certain points, sample management, instrument calibration even, AQL testing, all of that kind of thing to help you manage your quality testing, which is something that's quite a challenge to anybody in production. And this tooling allows you to do a lot more automated as well. So some miscellaneous bits in supply chain. There is a new supplier relationship feature coming. So there's already, some of you may have seen the vendor collaboration workspace, which is kind of quite minimal, but does the job. But there's a new portal coming, which is going to allow you to enable things like the supplier onboarding and RFQ responses and manage bidding, etc. And any changes which they want to put through, you don't have to do emails, etc. They can just have an access to this portal. And the preview is July 2025. So as soon as we can get our hands on that, we will get that up and do a quick demo for you to show you what it looks like. And it should be a great improvement over what we have now. It does work with the existing vendor collaboration capability, so it's not replacing anything you have already, it's extending that. So any setup and configuration and history you have in the existing workspace and setup will remain. And I suspect the existing collaboration workspace will remain as well. So you're not forced to move people onto this new relationship management, but that should be a great tool to use. And demand forecasting and planning, which is sort of similar to business performance in that it's a kind of separate tool, but it's behind the supplier premium license, a supply chain premium license. It's adding a lot more capabilities in there. So you can see that assortment planning is going to be possible now. So you can allocate demand across different dimensions, get a different shape to your demand planning. Time freezes, different signals, forecast with signals. You can select different algorithms or let it pick the best fit. And auto detect seasonality is going to be a really important one, I think. At the minute, you kind of have to put your own seasonality in there and adjust if it doesn't kind of pick that up in your forecast. But now, as you can see, that it's going to auto detect that. So you'll get your spikes and your troughs in there as you'd expect without you having to kind of massage the data. And also the functionality and data elements are being included to enable lean manufacturing, catch weight, and step consumption. And these were not really feasible before, so that's quite a big leap forward. So anyone who's been thinking about diving into demand forecasting and planning tool, it's getting a lot better, and it's getting a lot more flexible for you. So I think with just 3 minutes to go, that is all I wanted to go through for now. I just wanted to remind everyone of 22nd of May, my colleague Shilham will be running through Dynamics 365 CE. So that covers sales, customer service, field service, all of that set of applications. I would say, yeah, keep in touch. Got any questions, follow us on LinkedIn, send me any questions, send Debbie any questions, and let us know what you think of these regular reviews of the functionality, and tell us what you want to see demoed as well. We don't get enough feedback on what you actually want to see us run through. So we're looking forward to your feedback. And I will just say thanks everyone for attending. And if you'd like to ask questions, stay on at the end and you can fire them at us and we'll answer what we can.